Bonjour! So I have divided the champagne into 5 easy, understandable categories, like the producers. There is the champagne houses, and the champagne growers, artisan champagne, cooperatives, and everything else. And we're going to go all of these over in detail, and you'll get to understand what they mean. Champagne in total is 0.5% of the world's vineyards, so it's not that big, but still very, very relevant, as you can say. And 10% of the volume of sparkling wines is champagne, and 28% of the value. So as you can see, champagne is a bit more valuable than the average bubbly wine. In 2022, the sales of champagne were 6.3 billion euros, and that is 525.5 million bottles. And there is 43,200 hectares of land under vine, so it's quite a lot. And 4% of the area in France is champagne, but it counts 27% of the revenue, so champagne is significant. Most of champagne is currently exported, and the biggest destinations for that is, of course, the United States of America. There is 33.7 million bottles, and it's 947 million in sales. United Kingdom is the second with 22 million in bottles and around a bit over half a billion of sales. And the list goes on, you can see it here. And the quite interesting part is it's a small country, our dear neighbor, Sweden, is drinka mycket champagne. So that's also cool. So before we go to the producer introductions, let's talk a bit about different type of champagne producers, so we have a little bit of understanding before we enter that world. So first we go over the champagne houses. There is 370 champagne houses. Now I want you to think, how many of those can you name? Because of course Moët Chandon, Veuve Clicquot, Krug, Dom Pérignon, Taittinger, Paul Roger, Bollinger, all of these are part of this, and that's actually the ones that are the most known ones, of course, the biggest brands of champagne. So and they also count a lot on the whole economics of champagne. The first champagne house was Gauzet, that was founded 1584, and actually at that time it was not what we call champagne as it is. It was a wine house, and the oldest actual champagne house is Ruinart, which is founded in 1729, so a couple of years after Dom Pérignon died, the monk, I mean. About 100 of the champagne houses count for 3/4 of the turnover of champagne and 90% of the export. There are 7 big groups, umbrellas of champagne, and we'll go over them. Of course, you know Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, which is the biggest. They have sales over 2 billion euros, and they own 1,600 hectares of land under vine. Under vine means that they grow grapes on it, if you didn't catch that. And their portfolio includes, of course, Moët Chandon, Ruinart, Veuve Clicquot, Krug, Mercier, and the newest additions are Janison, and then, of course, also Armand de Brignac. The second largest group is Laurent Perrier, which includes Laurent Perrier, Delamotte, and Salon. Their sales are around 279 million euros a year. Vranken Pommery is around 271 million of sales, and 280 hectares is what they own. And Pommery, Vranken, Charles Lafite, Heidsieck et Co. Monopole is their brands. Pernod Ricard is with 264 million euros of sales, and they own 283 hectares of land. Mam and Perrier-Jouët are their brands. Louis Roeder is there also. Their sales are around 234 million, and they own 269 hectares of land, and it's Roeder and Dutz belong to that umbrella of brands. Then there is Lanson BCC, which is 231 million in sales, and they own 263 hectares, and the brands are Lanson, Bessarab, Bellafon, Chanois Frères, Boiselle, Philippona, and de Venoge. I hope I got the couple of pronunciations right. These are complicated for a Finn. And the newest addition to the over 150 million euros in sales is, do you think you know it? It's Tetanger. Yes, they are there, and they have 165.7 million of sales, and they own 288 hectares of land under vine. These numbers are from last year, so 2023. The next group, which is we would consider like big houses still, is from the 150 million of sales to 10 million of sales, so in that size. And there, the biggest one, soon going to the biggest bracket, is Charles Heidsieck and Piper Heidsieck with 140 million euros of sales, and they own 65 hectares. So this means that they buy majority of their grapes, and of course all of these houses have long-term contracts to buy. But this is also interesting when we go per producer to feel how that one producer is handling their business. Do they buy? What is their thing? So it's very fascinating. I like this stuff. Bollinger and Isla also belong to the same group. They are 127 million of sales and owning 179 hectares of land. Bileka Salmon is 88 million in sales and 80 hectares of land is owned by them. Tieno and Canard Duchesne is 65 million sales and 55 hectares of ownership. And then Paul Roger example is 54 million in sales and 92 hectares of ownership. You might be wondering why I say about numbers and money doesn't matter, la 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 la. Of course, yeah. But this is just to define the size, because sales is a good measurement. You can also count how many bottles they sell, but also euros count that because it's the value. I like that. So I figure out the stats and I share them with you guys. And if you're bored, skip on to the next video. Then there is Gosset with 19 million euros and Andrio with 19 million euros. Andrio owns only 30 hectares of land. And then example, Bruno Paillard is 10 million in sales and they own 30 hectares of land. And then there is around 30 houses that count 5% of the sales of the champagne houses. And these are like Lallier and Cartier. Cartier is known for like founding Armand de Brignac, or to do that with Jay-Z. There's another video on that if you're interested. But this is basically the houses, and there is like, now we just cover a couple of houses and there's still hundreds of left. So that's how big Champagne is. The champagne houses are, they produce classical style of champagne. For me, that means that aging is a big part how they start to flourish. And basically the aging potential for the champagne houses from anywhere from a couple of years to 50 to 80 to the longer than a human life span is. So, and I also like to rate wines because for me that's the language of how I compare different cuvées with each other. And for the champagne houses, it's basically anywhere from 85 to the absolute maximum of 100 points. And points matter. There's so many different variations of how people give points. Some people are generous. For me, it means how the wine tastes at that exact moment. So if somebody is now drinking 2013 Dom Pérignon and giving it 98 points, I'm very curious where to the other champagnes like Hooks, Claude Menils, all the Dom Pérignon Rosés, P2s, and everything else goes. So it's and I did a video on the points, and there's also my scale. What I use is actually in the book, and I also shared that. So check that also out. It is intriguing, fascinating stuff. And the production of a house is from let's say around 500,000 to tens of millions of bottles. And of course, the champagne houses own a lot of vineyards, but they also buy a lot of grapes. A lot. Basically, everybody buys. And this is the interesting part. In a sense, it's one of the few things where actually the brand still is a guarantee, because in today's world, as you can see, brand just is a guarantee for a price. But in champagne, there is still a guarantee for quality. If you drink the Moët Chandon's, Brut Imperial, there is a certain quality that you can expect with the price that you're paying. And the houses, they export 70% of their productions, over 70%. And this is the good that they do for the whole champagne, is that they also market. Their champagne is a bit more expensive, but they market. So and the thing that everybody benefits from this is all the growers, everybody growing their grapes in Champagne is benefiting from this. And this is the intriguing part also. 85% of a given producer's production is their business card champagne, so their basic cuvée, their Brut de Réserve, their basic champagne. And then the remaining 15%, that is the prestige cuvées, the vintages, the rosés, the rosé vintages, the blanc de blancs, and everything. So that is intriguing. When there's a good year, they need to focus a lot of effort also keeping the quality of their basic champagne, their entry-level champagne, as well as doing some vintages and everything else. But this is the intriguing part, which you should also be aware. The big houses have the resources and the funding to create the best champagnes. In a sense, quality of quantity. And that is like, if you take Dom Pérignon, the production is millions of bottles, and they can still upkeep that level of quality, which is, in a sense, small miracle. It's a much different thing to do a small quantity of a few thousand bottles of the best quality, but to do that in those scales, it is, and with all the things that change with nature, is a miracle in a sense. And one champagne from the bigger houses, they basically can blend champagnes, the grapes from all around the Champagne region. That's the idea of Champagne. It is that blending which they do. So that's how they can have quality and they can have quantity. Art of blending. Next one will be grower champagnes, so stay tuned. It will be amazing also. I hope you're enjoying these.